Break free from toxicity with Stoic wisdom. I used to think it was normal to feel constantly drained. I was caught in a storm of other people's negativity and my own anxious thoughts, and I honestly believed that was just life. Every day felt like walking through a hurricane of emotional drama, getting pulled in all directions by pointless conflicts, manipulative people, and a nagging inner critic that told me I wasn't strong enough. I felt powerless, like my own peace of mind was something anyone could just take from me. I was wrong. I found a way to break free. And it wasn't by changing the world around me, but by changing my own mind, using wisdom from over 20 years ago. I stumbled upon Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that gave me a blueprint for building an inner fortress, a calm sanctuary that no amount of outside chaos could touch. This is how I got my peace back, and I want to share the 10 Stoic principles that changed everything for me. This is how you stop being a victim of toxicity and start being the master of your own mind. If any of this sounds familiar, stick around and subscribe, because we're just getting started on this journey of reclaiming your power. Part 1. The 10 Stoic Principles that built my unbreakable mind. Principle 1. Master the one thing you truly own: your mind. The first lesson that really clicked for me was a simple but powerful idea the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. For years, I wasted so much energy trying to change toxic people. I'd try to reason with manipulators or plead with inconsiderate people, exhausting myself trying to get them to see the chaos they were causing. I was trying to control things I could never control, and it was breaking me. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it plainly: some things are up to us, and some are not. What's up to us are our own thoughts, our judgments, and our reactions. What's not up to us is pretty much everything else. What other people do, their opinions of us, and the world outside our own skin. A toxic person's behavior falls squarely in that second category. The moment I truly got that, it felt like a chain snapped. The burden of fixing them was never mine to carry. My only job was to control my response. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you become strategic. You stop wasting energy where it has no effect, and start using it where you have total authority, inside your own head. Instead of trying to calm their storm, I learned to anchor my own ship. Principle 2. Starve their drama, feed your peace. Toxic people are emotional arsonists. They thrive on the fire of your reaction. A passive-aggressive comment, a dramatic sigh, a baseless accusation. These are the matches they strike, just waiting for you to provide the fuel of your anger or frustration. For the longest time, I gave them exactly what they wanted. I'd argue, I'd defend myself, and I'd get sucked right into their vortex of negativity, feeling completely hollowed out after every single interaction. Stoicism taught me the art of non-reaction. It's not about bottling up your feelings, but about noticing them without letting them control you. I learned to use a modern technique that aligns perfectly with this Stoic idea, famously known as the grey rock method. When someone started drama, I'd become as uninteresting as a grey rock. My answers became short and logical, with no emotional hook. I see. That's something to think about. Okay. There was nothing for their drama to latch onto. It felt weird at first, maybe even a little cold. But the result was undeniable. An emotional fire without fuel burns out fast. Their storm, without the wind of my reaction, just fizzled out. They didn't change, but their power to drain me completely vanished. Principle 3. Build your inner citadel. I used to be incredibly vulnerable to what other people said. A backhanded compliment or a dismissive remark could wreck my whole day. I was letting other people define my self-worth, because I hadn't built anything inside to protect it. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius used the perfect analogy for this: the mind as an inner citadel, a fortress you can retreat into at any time. His writings in Meditations constantly return to the theme that we have power over our judgments about external events, not the events themselves. Realizing this is where you find real strength. This completely shifted my perspective. My mind wasn't a public park for anyone to spray paint their opinions on. It was my private fortress, and I was the one guarding the gate. An insult is just noise until you let it in and agree with it. A toxic person's judgment is just their opinion, coming from their own issues, until you decide it's a fact. I started seeing their negativity not as an attack on me, but as a reflection of them. As Marcus Aurelius realized, people often act badly because they don't know any better. That didn't excuse their behavior, but it did strip their words of their power. My citadel became my own space of reason and self-respect, and I learned to be a very picky gatekeeper. Principle 4. Choose your company. Guard your time. For a long time, I felt like I owed my time and energy to anyone who asked for it. I'd go to gatherings I knew would drain me and sit through toxic conversations out of some weird sense of obligation. I was treating my time and my peace like they were infinite, when they're actually the most valuable, limited resources I have. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus gave some pretty blunt advice on this. He taught that we should try to keep company with people who uplift us, whose presence brings out our best. He warned that negative attitudes are contagious, like a disease. If you spend time with someone covered in mud, you're probably going to get some on you, no matter how clean you are. So, I started seeing my social life less as a list of duties and more as a garden I needed to tend. Before I'd agree to spend time with someone, I'd ask myself, does this person's presence bring out the best in me? If the answer was consistently no, I began to respectfully create distance. That meant saying no to invitations, cutting phone calls short, and choosing to be alone rather than in bad company. It felt like a radical act of self-preservation, because it was. You wouldn't knowingly drink poison, so why would you willingly absorb toxic energy? Principle 5. Your best revenge is to be unlike them. When someone toxic lies to you, manipulates you, or betrays you, that desire for revenge can be overwhelming. You want them to hurt like you hurt. You want them to get it. But that desire, as human as it is a trap. It keeps you emotionally chained to the very person you're trying to escape. Marcus Aurelius offered the perfect way out of this prison with one powerful idea. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This isn't about being passive. It's an active, powerful choice. When they're dishonest, you double down on your integrity. When they're cruel, you respond with unshakable character. When they create chaos, you cultivate your own inner peace. You win, not by beating them at their own game, but by making their game completely irrelevant to your life. Their toxicity becomes nothing more than a dark background that makes your own integrity shine brighter. It turns a painful experience into a training ground for character. The ultimate power move isn't making them suffer, it's refusing to let them corrupt you. Principle 6. Practice misfortune to conquer fear. One of the worst parts of dealing with toxic people is the constant, low-level anxiety it creates. I'd waste hours worrying about what someone might say or do next. The fear of the next conflict was often worse than the conflict itself. I was living in a constant state of dread, letting someone else's moods dictate my future. The Stoics had a brilliant, if counterintuitive, exercise for this. We now call it premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. The philosopher Seneca taught that if you deliberately think about worst-case scenarios, losing your job, getting insulted, a relationship ending, you rob them of their power to terrorize you. So, I tried it. What's the worst that could happen if this person gets angry? They might yell. They might spread rumors. They might stop talking to me. I would sit with each of those possibilities, really picture them, and then plan how I'd handle it from a place of calm. I quickly realized I could survive all of it. I had the tools. By facing my fears in my mind, they stopped being these huge, undefined monsters. The anxiety started to fade because I wasn't afraid of the unknown anymore. I had already visited it and walked away fine. This practice didn't make me a pessimist. It made me a prepared optimist, ready for anything. Principle 7. Seek the view from above. Daily life, especially when you're caught up with toxic people, can feel like you're stuck in a maze. Petty fights and office politics can seem like the most important struggles in the world. It's so easy to lose perspective and get bogged down in drama that, in the grand scheme of things, means absolutely nothing. The Stoics offer an escape hatch, the view from above. Marcus Aurelius would often do this in his meditations. He'd imagine himself floating up, looking down on his city, then his country, then the whole planet hanging in the vastness of space. From that cosmic perspective, our little squabbles shrink to their true size, basically invisible. When a co-worker made a passive-aggressive comment, I started practicing this. I'd picture the situation from a mile up. How important is this, really? Will it matter in a week? In a year? Set against the backdrop of my entire life and the silent, spinning cosmos. The answer was always a clear no. This exercise isn't meant to dismiss your feelings, but to put them in perspective. It detaches you from that ego-driven need to be right and reconnects you to a sense of calm. Most of the fires we frantically run around trying to put out are just tiny sparks that would go out on their own if we just stopped giving them our attention. Principle 8. Set boundaries as an act of self-respect. For the longest time, I thought setting boundaries was selfish. I'd let people walk all over me, take up my time, and drain my energy because I didn't know how to say no without feeling guilty. I saw no as a rejection of them instead of what it really is, a statement of self-worth. The Stoics taught me that boundaries aren't walls to shut people out. They're fences to protect your own property, your time, your energy, and your peace. It's a logical part of the dichotomy of control. You can't control if someone will try to cross a boundary, but you have absolute control over building that boundary in the first place. A life where you can't say no to others is a life where you're saying no to your own well-being. I learned that a good boundary is just a calm, clear statement of what's okay with you and what isn't. It's not a threat, it's a user manual for how to treat you. I started small. I'm not able to talk about this right now, or I keep my evenings free for my family. No anger, no drama, just a fact. And a funny thing happened. The people who respected me also respected my boundaries. The people who didn't, well, they filtered themselves right out of my life. Principle 9. Find freedom in acceptance. One of my biggest struggles was resenting my past. I was angry about the years I'd lost to toxic situations and frustrated with myself for not being stronger sooner. That resentment was a heavy anchor, keeping me chained to the very pain I wanted to escape. The Stoics had an attitude for this, best captured by a phrase coined much later by the philosopher Nietzsche, amor fati, or a love of one's fate. It doesn't mean you have to be happy that bad things happened. It means you accept everything that's happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, as a necessary part of your story. You choose to see adversity not as a curse, but as the very thing that forged your strength. I started to look at my past experiences with toxicity not as wounds, but as lessons. The manipulative person taught me what real loyalty looks like. The draining job taught me how to build my inner fortress. The constant drama taught me how beautiful peace is. Without those struggles, I never would have found this philosophy. I wouldn't have this resilience. This isn't passive resignation, it's a creative act. You stop fighting with reality and start working with it, turning the raw material of your life into something strong and valuable. Principle 10. Become your own best counselor through reflection. Even with all these tools, it was easy to slip back into old habits. Our reactive instincts are dug in deep. The final piece of the puzzle for me was creating a system to make sure I was actually making progress. The Stoics were huge believers in daily reflection. At the end of each day, the philosopher Seneca would review his day, asking himself things like, "What weakness did I overcome today? What fault did I resist? In what way am I better?" This became my ritual. Every night, I'd take just 10 minutes to look back on the day. Where did I successfully apply a principle? Where did I mess up? If I got pulled into an argument, I'd analyze it without judging myself. What was the trigger? What was my knee-jerk emotional reaction? What could I try differently next time? This daily check-in turned my life into a lab for self-improvement. It created a feedback loop that helped me learn and adapt fast. Instead of just letting life happen to me, I became an active student of my own behavior. This is the practice that makes all the others stick. It's the work that turns ideas into reality, building your unbreakable mind one day at a time. Conclusion. Putting these 10 principles into practice didn't make the toxic people in my life disappear. The world is still full of storms, but I changed my relationship with them completely. The storm is still out there, but now I am the lighthouse, steady, anchored, and shining my own light, not a ship getting tossed around on the waves. I learned that my inner peace was never theirs to take, it was only ever mine to give away. This journey isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally invincible. It's about understanding that you have the ultimate power, the power to choose how you respond, to build your fortress, and to guard your own mind. You aren't responsible for fixing toxic people. You are responsible for protecting yourself, and that is where your greatest power lies. Freedom from toxicity isn't found by silencing the chaos outside, but by finding the quiet strength within. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more content on building a resilient and peaceful mind. We can take this journey together. And now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me which one of these 10 principles you're going to try first. Your journey starts with one small step. Finally, if you know someone who feels like they're trapped in their own storm, share this video. You might be handing them the blueprint for their own lighthouse.